Okay, welcome back, guys. So, George, thanks a lot for taking your time to
My pleasure.
Talk to
Glad to
everybody
be
here. So, before we get into it, I want us to actually talk about the current state of the market, because I know that's a major question that a lot of people are having at the moment.
Sure.
Last week, there was an increase that happened with the interest rates.
Right.
Talk about that a little bit.
So, obviously for those that are in variable rate mortgages currently, that is impacting them. So there's two types of variable rate mortgages. There's a variable rate mortgage where the payment is static. So the payment amount doesn't change when the Bank of Canada makes a rate announcement, but the proportion of principal and interest change, right? Yeah. That's one. And we'll talk, there's an issue with those. And then there's what they call really an adjustable rate mortgage, which is a variable rate mortgage where the payment changes every time the Bank of Canada makes a rate announcement, right? Mm-hmm. So those people have had the luxury, so to speak, of getting used to these payment increases. But the payments have increased significantly for those that, from last March, April, when the Bank of Canada started their rate increases. It has definitely affected people's cash flows, right? And, I've talked to lots of people about it, and fortunately, my clients have been okay. They've just kind of reallocated money from savings or something else to deal with the mortgage payment until rates eventually come back down, hopefully in 2024. Those that are in the static payment, right, they have what they call it a trigger rate, right? So basically that means that your payment is no longer covering your interest payment. Then you're getting a letter from the bank saying, Mr. or Mrs. Client, your payment is no longer covering your interest. We need to increase your payment. And some people have been seeing like 30 to 40% increase in their payments like overnight, which is a little bit of a challenge, right? Yeah. So for those that are in the market currently, those are the challenges that they're dealing with. For us, for people that are looking to buy, the question is, do we go variable? Do we go fixed? Right?
And for those people who are looking to buy now, would you say, particularly if they come in and get their mortgage, would you say it's important for them to lock it in right now?
Not necessarily. If you're going to lock in, to me, it's lock in short term, 1 or 2 years, if you want fixed, because at some point, and we've already seen some downward pressure on the fixed rates, right? We'll probably see some more throughout 2023. I think we're going to see some ups and downs, right? But right now the rates have come down a little bit. But I think, within a year or so, 18 months, things may normalize a little bit, whatever that normal really is.
And that's why you're suggesting lock in for maybe 2 to 3 years, or?
I wouldn't go. I'd probably say 1 or 2 on a fixed rate.
Okay.
I would still consider a variable rate right now too, because if we're at the tail end of rate increases, right? So that whole thing of payments changing may have subsided now, right? Or trigger rates may not be approached, right? Again, to be determined. But the consensus is that in 2024 we're going to see prime rate come down. Right, so you'll benefit if you're in a static payment. You'll benefit because now you'll be paying more towards the principal. And if you're in an adjustable rate mortgage, your payment will start dropping as well. So I think it's probably a good strategy. So variable or 1 or 2 year fixed rate max. Those are my recommendations right now.
In general, and I know this is a tough question to ask, but in general, what are you advising a lot more at this current state of the market, to get variable or a fixed?
I basically give the client the pros and cons of both scenarios, and ultimately let the client make the decision. Give them the information, give them the knowledge, right? And let them make the decision that they're comfortable with, because everyone's circumstances are different. I may be comfortable with an adjustable rate or a variable rate. You may be comfortable with fixed. And if it's fixed you want, we go with fixed. But to go 5 years fixed, I just can't see locking in at 5 years at this point. Right, when I feel there's going to be downward pressure on the 5-year rates, and maybe the 3, 4, and 5 year terms, I think are going to start coming down. So maybe sometime next year. So that's why I say if you lock in for say a year, you've bought yourself some time, you got some flexibility, so that if rates have come down, then you look to lock in potentially, or again look at where a variable is.
Now we also do have some sellers that we dealt with towards the beginning of the year, or even last year, 2 years, 3 years ago. And they have seen the interest rate now going up as it has so far. Now, what kind of penalties will they go through if they choose to break that early? Like, what kind of penalties do they encounter for that?
So right now, variable rates, whether it's an adjustable rate or a straight variable rate mortgage, is 3 months of interest penalty. Okay, and that's always the case with variable rate mortgage. Fixed rate mortgages, they have either 3 months of interest penalty or what they call the interest rate differential, which is a calculation based on how much interest the bank is basically going to lose over the rest of the term of your mortgage. Right now, because we've gone from a low rate environment on the fixed side to a higher rate, most people are experiencing a 3-month interest penalty. So to break a mortgage, if you're in a low rate, you have to kind of see, do you really want to break that mortgage? Unless you have to, right? But if there's the ability to port that mortgage to another property, that's probably the best strategy. And then kind of see, depending on what kind of a product you have in place, right? Sometimes you can add another segment to your mortgage if you have like a Scotia Step mortgage, which has different segments available, right? But if you have to pay the penalty, you pay the penalty, right?
That's right. And what about those ones who were thinking of refinancing? The benefit of refinancing. Actually, what is refinancing?
So refinancing basically means that you're consolidating all your debt, including your mortgage. So if you have car payments, you have credit cards, lines of credit, right? We look at putting all those balances together, right? If it allows, if the capital is, if the equity is there in the home, right? People say that may be counterintuitive to refinance at these high rates, right? But when you look at how much people are paying for a car or a line of credit or credit cards, and we do the math and say, okay, where's your weighted average between what you're currently paying on your mortgage and all the other debt, and we let the math speak, right? But at the end of the day, it improves people's cash flow, which is the biggest issue right now, especially, inflation has definitely played a key part on people's lives today. Just, go to the grocery store, you go to the gas station, right? So cash flow is important. So again, it has to be specific to that individual if refinancing is the right thing to do.
Okay. Now, for what do you think about some of the sellers who want to put their properties up in the market? Would you advise a seller to first talk to a mortgage broker, or?
I would say always, of course, obviously as a mortgage broker, I'd say yes. And if you're going to call a mortgage broker, you're going to call me, ideally.
Absolutely.
But you have to speak to someone in advance of starting that process.
Exactly.
Just to know where you stand as a borrower, what you potentially qualify for, what the penalties may be, right? Because there's penalties, then you say, okay, I'm going to sell the house, I'm going to pay real estate commission, then I'm also going to buy a property, I'm going to pay land transfer taxes again. So you have to look at all those costs associated with that decision to see, does it make sense? And for some people, they have to, right? They've outgrown their home, right? Or they have to move because of jobs, whatever the case may be. But you definitely need to speak to a mortgage broker or someone at your bank, right, that can advise you properly, right? And then engage a realtor to say, okay, we've identified how much I can qualify for, Mr. or Mrs. Realtor, please take me now to see what we can do. And then engaging the realtor with your mortgage professional, excuse me, is great too, right? Because that way we work as a team, right, and talk about the variables when we, look at different properties.
Now, as I know, as a real estate agent, working with buyers, we get paid by the seller.
Right.
Negotiate on our commission with the seller.
Right.
As a mortgage broker, how do you get paid?
So I get paid by the lender, right? Assuming we go to a bank or an A lender. Right? If we have to go to an alternative or B lender, right, there is usually a 1% lender fee, and there's usually a 0.5% to 1% broker fee as well, right? But again, depending on where we have to go. But if we go to a bank or a non-bank lender, right, which is still an A lender, we typically get paid by the lenders.
Now, you've mentioned something there, a bill lender. Some people that I talk to, when they hear a bill lender, they're just like, no, I don't even want to do it. What are some of these?
I hear it too, right? They have this fear. They feel like they're going into this little closet of some lender, right? And it's like this little dark hole. And really, these are large institutions lending a lot of money, but offering fantastic solutions for those that don't qualify within the A side, right? And, the A side has tight regulations, right? Lenders offer, what we call extended ratios, right? Which typically depend, especially for self-employed people, it allows you to get in to a property. Yes, there may be a fee on the broker side. You've got to pay the lender and the broker. The rates may be a little bit higher, right? But at least it gets you into the market.
That's right.
Right? And I think that's what people, again, have to look at the numbers, have to look at their circumstances. Does it make sense? For the most part, if you don't qualify on the A side, but you qualify on the B side, and you fit that criteria, then definitely do the research. And these are great lenders that are offering fantastic solutions.
Just give me an example of who's an A lender and who's a B lender.
So the banks obviously are A lenders, right? But we have on the non-bank lenders, we have the likes of RFA, First National, MCAP. Oh my God. put me on the spot here. There's so many. Those are some of the key ones, right? Yeah. Then some of those same ones have a B arm as well, right? So RFA has a B arm. There's Optimum Mortgages. There's Home Trust, which is a great B lender, and they were in the news a few years back, and everyone kind of shies away from. But great solutions. Equitable Bank do both A and B as well. So there's so many out there, but everyone has. Some of them have their own little niches and specialties, right? So if it doesn't work with that B lender, we go to another B lender, right? Some of them have better rates, some don't.
That's true.
Some at least give you a solution that you didn't have.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the important thing. If you're going to focus on the solution, we have solutions available.
The important part is that you have access to all.
We have access to all of them, right? And our company has top tier status basically with all these lenders, right? And then the one thing we haven't talked about yet, there's also private lending.
There you go.
Right. So if you don't fit in with the A side or you don't fit in with the B side, then we look at the private side again, if it makes sense. The biggest part with the private side is obviously, there's higher rates, but more importantly is, do we have an exit strategy? Can we get you out of there within 12 months? We don't want you paying those high rates forever. We want to have a strategy to be able to get you to the B side at least, if not to the A side. So always looking to see how do we get someone into a better position, depending on what they do for a living, whatever, but we'll play with those numbers and say, all right, this is what you need to get you from the private back to the B or to the A. And even when we're on the B side, this is what we advise clients. This is what you need to do to get to the A. Does it make sense? Great. If it doesn't make sense, we stay where we are.
So we've experienced a lot of stories about B lenders, private lenders. Are there any stories that you know of that some of these people can actually get?
Yeah, I have a great story. It actually happened in August. I was on holidays in France, and I get this call from this lady. It was a Thursday, and she goes, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I have a house that's closing on Monday, and I need a mortgage," right? I said, well, that ain't happening, right? So I said, first of all, you need to get an extension. Yeah. She goes, okay, what exactly does that mean? I said, well, your lawyer. She goes, I don't have a lawyer.
So wait a minute. So let me just paint a picture. So she had an offer already accepted, and it's just about to close.
Yeah.
And
so she went in
closing
firm
on Thursday, or
it was she called me on a Thursday, closed the following Monday. But she had bought the property back in, I think, like April or May.
Yeah.
And she firmed up.
Oh, she firmed up without any documents, without having.
She was talking to some broker at the time, right? And for whatever reason, because I talked to the agent, and go, why did this lady even buy a house? So, anyways, to make a long story short, she firmed up. Now she's on the hook, right? So she had $35,000 down payment, bought an $800,000 house, and made around $40,000 a year. I'm going, that doesn't work. Who did the math for you? No one did the math. And she goes, oh, I know, but we got messed up and whatever. It's like, all right. So anyway, to make a long story short, got her a lawyer, got her an extension.
Yeah.
Her numbers didn't work because her income was so low. We tried adding a brother, tried adding a mother's, this, that, and whatever, and it wasn't working. So we had to get 20% down payment from her mom's house. We had to do a private on the mom's, private second on the mom's, and she had to do a private first on her house, on the property she was buying.
Yeah.
So she basically financed 100%. But I'll tell you something, she loved me. She was praising Jesus up and down because she wanted the house badly, and obviously we saved her down payment, and she was willing to do whatever it needed to do, right? And I said, all right, what are we going to do in 12 months? Actually, I think I got her a 16-month term. I go, what are we doing in 16 months? She goes, you got this. I say, okay, I've got this. So it was one of those, because of the time difference too, working late at night over there and just, trying to enjoy your holidays. But we got it done, right? And I think she has this business going on, so she thinks her business will come to fruition. And, everyone's got their fingers crossed that it comes through. But, she refers me now to people, and she goes, he's your guy. It's just like, he pulls miracles. I go, yeah, sometimes we can.
But honestly, from what I hear, I think it's very important to always do a buyer consultation before you purchase a property.
100%.
I typically would do a buyer consultation with my client, and sometimes I involve you in it because I know sometimes that initial conversation, you might be afraid to have that conversation, and they might be afraid to bring you into it, but it's just an introduction on what's going to happen. That way you avoid scenarios like this.
That's right.
Because that's easy to to avoid at the beginning.
Look, so many times we've done high level. We're on the phone. We got a calculator. We're doing high level. Then we get into the details in the next step. But it's important to at least have that as a starting point.
That way, if you're not, because obviously there's some who really want to get that A lender and they're just like, I'm not doing it.
Absolutely, sure.
That way, ahead of time. You're not 100%. It's exciting.
No surprises.
Yeah, it's exciting to go out and look for properties, and you're saying, okay, hey, I like this house. I want to move forward with it.
Absolutely.
Another thing.
How many times have we said to people, it's easy for us to get you into a house, but you got to make the payment.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to be comfortable with that amount every month. So knowing that number in advance, right, is critical.
Oh, man. I'll eventually give you guys some stories about real estate and some of the crazy stuff that happens in real estate. But for now, George, I want to say thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
In this video, I'm going to have a link right below it. We're going to have George's information in there. If you want to set up at least even a buyer consultation with myself, and if you want to involve George in it, we can do that for you. And in here, we just talk about where you are in this process. Even if you're thinking of purchasing in, let's say, 6 months, in a year, you have a property you want to sell, you don't know what to do with it, you have all this equity in there, it's good to have that initial conversation just to plan for it, to understand what you need to do moving forward. So I'm going to have a link below the video. You can schedule an appointment whenever you want, whenever you're free, or we can do a Zoom. It's called a Zoom appointment, and we'll just have this quick conversation. But until next time, guys, we'll have another guest seated right here, and
I thought it was exclusive.
But if there's something you want to talk about, if there's someone you want to sit here, let me know, and I'll bring them in here as well. Have a good one, guys. Thank you.